Thank you, Jeanette. I would love to stay in that place for the rest of the year. It's a wonderful place to be, at peace that passes all understanding. And there is peace and rejoicing today because it is Easter Sunday. And we rejoice because if you look back on Holy Week, you'll say, what a week it was. It's a week of our life. And as some of you know, when you do a talk here, you tend to come across the thing you're talking about. It's good in some ways, but my goodness, it gets us out of our comfort zone. And when we get inspiration, it's wise to just sit and write. Something wonderful came to me last night. And I said, oh, that's so good. I'll remember that in the morning. But Easter Sunday is symbolic of the awakening and expanding consciousness of us. We awaken from what is no longer useful on our spiritual journey. We give thanks to those past experiences, which are no longer serving us. But this had to come before that. And I look at the world now and think everyone is fighting against this and that. In a way, it's good. Everyone's getting their opinions out. But that had to happen. We had to be, I'm speaking about myself here, a baby boomer before the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. We had to do certain things. We had to put up with black and white television. Even before then, just radio. Now, I look at some of the giant screens and think, wow, this is wonderful. And a lot of people take these for granted. So one of the blessings I've got is I don't take any of that sort of stuff for granted. Well, they say we create our experiences. Well, we do. That's one of the unity principles. Our thinking is creative. But everyone else is creating too. So we're all in this big pea soup of people's creations. Did we create that? We added a bit to it. But it's how we react to them and how we deal with these situations that we have the power to make sure that we are not knocked off our perch, but moving on and using our thought to express the universal spiritual law. Just as Good Friday was a time of crossing out and releasing and letting go, Easter Sunday is a symbolic for rising up, affirming and bringing our awakened awareness into practice now. That's another principle. If we know the universal law, no point in just knowing anything. We have to express it. I had a piano student who was very, very good. And I said, look, I'm having a concert. This is a few years back when I was teaching full time. I said, I'd love you to come and play. He said, oh, no, I couldn't. I said, well, you can play in your room all you like. I said, but your gift should be out there expressing. Took a while, but he got there. We started with something simple first. And the same with, I often speak about it, Margaret Schofield, my last teacher that got me through my diploma. I think she was in her middle 80s. She made herself perform. She made herself be available for accompanying for exams. And she made herself sight read. And I think she gave her last ABC recital when they had those sort of things on radio, when she was about 82. So what are we leaving behind? St. Paul in Corinthians, when I was a child, I understood as a child. I thought as a child, but when I grew up, I put away childish things. Well, here we go, the week. What a week it was, Monday. Palm Sunday was a celebration for Jesus as he rode through Jerusalem with the hosannas, the palm leaves, and it was joy, joy, joy. But down to business. Monday, Jesus goes to the temple, and there he sees the rabble, the money changers. They're selling this, they're selling that, all sorts of things are going on, and he loses his temper. He clears that temple. I think he had a whip and says, "Get out, my father's house is not a den of thieves." Now, some of you know, or most of you know, that we are a metaphysical group. We look for the meaning behind these verses. We are the temple. Our Christ consciousness is overseeing that temple. And we cleanse ourselves of all those thoughts, those dreary, dreary thoughts that are lingering there all the time. And we know that when Jesus was on the mountain a while back, he was confronted by these thoughts and they called it the devil. But that's that part of himself, that Antichrist, that was challenging him. Did it go away? Did he silence it completely? We'll see as we go on. Temples. Aren't we a wonderful group of temples here today? I know that we are just made in the image and likeness of God. And it's noticeable that many visionaries, from St. Francis to Bernadette of Lourdes to Fatima and the Roman Catholic mystics, are told in their apparition to build a temple on this spot. So we build our temple, our rock of faith, like Peter. He built his church on the rock of faith, which is our higher consciousness. And when we've done it, and after we've been assaulted, and we come back, and we come back, and we come back, we have what is called established consciousness. Nothing can take that away from us. Nothing. Okay, the week doesn't get any easier. Tuesday. Jesus didn't have breakfast that day. He was in a bad mood because he went to go to the fig tree and there were no figs. It was barren. So what did he do? He cursed it. I don't know what he said, but I can imagine if you're hungry and you don't have any breakfast, it doesn't put you in a good frame of mind. But this is just a story. We've all had that. If we have a talent that we're not using, we are barren. We have to make sure that we use whatever God has given us in service of one another. I especially like the Catholic mystic stories. I really got right into those, and I think it was 1960. They had the 100th anniversary of the sighting at Lourdes with Bernadette, and people were trailing over to get this water from this stream, and people were being cured. I wonder if they realised the power of belief that was behind that. If they could believe that water could cure them, what else could that belief do in their life? Well, he moves on into the synagogue and his authority is questioned. Now we learn when he was young, he was in the synagogue. He was talking to the priests and the rabbis, and in a very, very amazing way. So he knew the Hebrew scriptures. We don't know what he did in all those years before his final ministry, but he certainly knew the Hebrew scriptures. And people ask him, "Who do you think you are? Where's this coming from?" And he condemns those rabbis and says, "You are teaching about a God out there. I'm here to tell you about a God inside you." And the priests, of course, had the people hooked with their money atonements and animal sacrifices. And the people thought only the priests could do this. But Jesus made it known that he was there to teach the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And we find the difference between that in the Old Testament and the New Testament, the commandments of Moses, the 10 commandments, thou shalt not. And then the amazing Beatitudes, of Jesus on his Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are, blessed are, blessed are. That is when we first hear of that wonderful golden rule. Luke 22, 37, 14. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy soul and with all thy mind, and thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. We know that. And why should we love our neighbour as ourselves? Because we are all individualized expression of the one presence and one power right here and right now. And it's us. We're all together in this at this particular time. The shepherd, he always went back for that sheep he couldn't find. And that's what we have to do. We have to preach the gospel to the whole world. And we can. With the amazing media we have now, and I think it's working. People are hearing about these ancient laws all over the world, according to their culture, according to their customs and where they live. It's the same law. This change in our consciousness can be gradual or it can be unexpected. That's the interesting thing, if you want to put it that way. Rarely is it without any drama. But like the caterpillar changing into a butterfly and that phoenix bird rising from the ashes of its former self, that's what we do in our soul's evolution, whether we like it or whether we don't. Our personality doesn't, our ego doesn't, because it is happy. It's a good day. We want to go down the beach, we might go for lunch, and we want to enjoy the good things of life. Well, we do. But we move on. Nothing is the same as it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and as we know, 1 year ago. I've got a slide here, which I'd like you to see. It's called The Chambered Nautilus by Oliver Wendell Holmes. He was born in 1909 and lived till 1896. Build me more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift seasons roll. Leave thy low vaulted past, that each new temple nobler than the last, shut thee from heaven with a dome more vast, till those at length are free, leaving their outgrown shell by life's unresting sea. I think I will. I was in two minds about this. But when you think, when that poem was written between 1909 and 1986, here's another poet. They knew all this stuff. William Wordsworth. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing the clouds of glory, do we come from God, who is our home. And that's from another spiritual group, Spiritual Link. And I was looking at that the other day. I thought, my goodness, this was written when Wordsworth was alive. Wednesday. Thank goodness. A quieter day for Jesus, but behind the scenes, religious leaders are conspiring against him. And as we know, being slightly empathic, most of us here, or you wouldn't be here, we feel when there are things around us that are going on. We wonder what they are, but we know. Anyway, Jesus was at home, where he was staying. In Matthew 26, verse 7. There came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poised it on his head as he sat nearby. In Mark 4, this ointment is identified as spikenard. It was one of the oils used in the temples in Jerusalem. It also has other therapeutic uses. This oil was used for those with deep-seated grief or emotional pain, and more symbolically, in palliative care. It was used to ease the transition from life to death. Now, before we had all the types of care we've got now, imagine all they had was these basic things. We live in a wonderful age where we can transition from one to another. We have drugs that sort of help you pass over and ease the pain, and there's nothing wrong with that. Who made the drugs? Inventors and doctors, and they're all individualized expressions of God, and it has helped us in our life. And it has helped a few people I know in their passing. When I was studying music, we found that before all this time, when there were operations needed, like for example the dentist, in medieval times, he'd go travelling around all the different towns, and all the musicians would meet up, the minstrels, and they'd sing and dance, and all the people that wanted to have a tooth extracted, they all used to sing, and they all used to meet at the tavern and made sure they got sozzled, because it made life easier. And I think that's sensible. I don't know whether it would have been worse, the pain or the hangover after it. But anyway, it's amazing how we adapt. We're so resilient. We will adapt to anything. We are creative people, and we are adapting every way and every day. Now, Judas complained that this oil was a waste. We could be selling this. Look at what we could get for this oil and give it to the poor. Judas is that part of us which is a thief. His character represents that which takes away from us. It makes the love of money more important than the joy of living. It's actually the law of attraction and the law of giving and receiving. We have to be able to receive. Quite often we give and we give and we give, but something inside us, when someone says, look, have one of those, you say, oh no, thank you, I couldn't. And there's been many times like that, especially in my younger years, whereas we say, thank you, I'll receive that. I want that and I'll receive it. Thank you very much. So we need to give ourselves time to celebrate the good things of life. As it says in the Song of Solomon, life is for living. Celebrate it. On this day, in the story of Jesus, Judas agrees to the betrayal. Thursday. I think we have a slide here. It's only a symbolic slide, just a couple of paintings there. Jesus gathers his disciple in the upper room in Jerusalem for the Passover meal, which we know as the Last Supper. As they were eating, Jesus took the bread and blessed it, saying, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup of wine and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, "Drink all of it, for this is my blood of the new covenant, the New Testament." The cup, to me, represents the joy of life. There's a Ricky Martin song called "The Cup of Life," which I used to love playing and playing. It's all about the joy of life, the cup of life. And the cup represents the consciousness of eternal life. And this is attained by the crossing out of our personal self. In John 18, This is the cup my Father hath given me. Wine symbolizes the vitality that forms a connecting link between body and soul. The wine of life must be available in large quantities before a blending of thoughts and body, a wedding, can be made successful. And it's interesting that the wedding at Cana, a town in Galilee, was where Jesus performs his first miracle at a wedding by turning water into wine. The symbolism of that is just amazing. Excuse me. So that wedding, the wine, we really have to not just say an affirmation, we have to feel it, express it, dance it, sing it, and it will go in and we'll get to that part of us, which is the part which connects to the higher self. And in the Kahuna teachings, they say we've got our upper, and we've got our conscious, and we've got the subconscious part of ourselves. It's all the one mind, but three parts. We have to convince ourselves that our word is law. And when we do, the higher self takes over. That's one approach. The bread. This represents universal substance, a body of spiritual ideas. And if we have those ideas, we take them on board and do what I just mentioned. We think them, we live them, we breathe them, and we feel them. Thou shalt eat bread at my table continuously. Then the disciples go to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. Gethsemane, according to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which is very, very much a part of our teachings here, means oil press. I'll think about that a bit more as the year goes on, but Gethsemane was a garden, so I suppose there are olive trees there, and people would have made olive oil. To get the oil, you have to really press the fruit. And to me, that is symbolic of what I was talking about before. We really have to get these ideas in and live them. Now, I mentioned before that had the devil left Jesus, or that anti-personality side of him, maybe not, because in Matthew 26:39, feeling all this mayhem going on, Jesus said, "Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." And as soon as he said it, he knew that it was over. There was no going back. There's nowhere to go back to. It was time to really sacrifice anything that stood in the way of truth. And the affirmation Jesus says here, "Not as I will, but thine be done." Thy will is our higher self. And later in that evening, Jesus is betrayed. I'm going to leave out Good Friday. It's too sad, even if it's true or not. Some of the things that went on, we've seen them before, they've been made into movies, and I just want to think about Easter Sunday because it means resurrection. Resurrection from all that dead stuff that still lingers on sometimes. So weeks before in John 11, after raising Lazarus from the dead and before his so-called death on the cross, he already says, "I am the resurrection." And later he states in 16:33 of John, "Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." And that was before the week that was. So Easter Sunday is our time, a time to affirm new visions and new beginnings, to rise up and break free from all that stuff. We do, because we have an inner restlessness that gets us to a certain point, and then, okay, is that all there is? What's next? And we keep moving. It's a journey. And that journey keeps going while we have a physical body. As I said, rarely is it without drama. And awareness unfolds from within us that we are all one in spirit. So if we can handle the golden rule, we've made a big step forward. So, as Good Friday was symbolic of a time of crossing out, so Easter Sunday is a time for rising up into our expanded consciousness of who we really are, an individualized expression of the one presence and the one power in whom we live, move, and have our being, and always have, and always will be. And that is the good news for Easter Saturday. Namaste. Thank you. My goodness, it's what a week it is. And the best is yet to come because I was looking through some songs.